What's good, everybody? It's BBKDRAGOON coming at you today with this will be somewhat rambly, but I do have a very focused point I want to make, and that is how can we make Destiny 2 a better game? And it really comes down to something that, unfortunately, is as simple as numbers and business. But I'm going to cover the Activision Blizzard investor earnings call now in detail, which is a very important metric in some ways, and in other ways it really just supplies us with nothing new. It's the same cheerleading dance show every single quarter, and I'll dive into that in a minute. Know that I'm making this video from the place of a heart that wants to see Destiny 2 improve. I'm in the middle of two distinct places right now. Number one, with my content, I don't want to be crazy critical. I'm always fighting with how, critical do I want to be towards this game, because there's so many new PC players who are loving Destiny 2 right now. And then there's the other side of me that goes, no, man, it is time to be brutally honest and upfront, because all the conversations I have with you guys in the Destiny the Show Discord, my clanmates, my friends, the wider community, it's very clear to see that the people who played Destiny for the last 3 years are not happy with Destiny 2, including myself. The endgame progression loop is abysmal, in my opinion. They really have blown it when it comes to incentive in so many ways. And the bummer is, the actual gameplay of Destiny 2 is phenomenal. Okay, there's no other game out there that feels as good to move and shoot, and their AI enemies are super fun. There's so much here. The foundation of the house is so great, but they have fallen so far behind that even vanilla Destiny 1, in my opinion, just my opinion, it was better in many ways in terms of the incentives, and it wasn't even that great back then. That's the crazy thing here. So just know that this topic today comes from a place of I want to see this game improve. Okay, every single quarter, Activision Blizzard has their investor earnings call. Right now, you and I can go out and buy stock shares of Activision Blizzard. The ticker is ATVI if you guys want to look at it. It is touted as the biggest video game company in the world, which may very well be true, because Activision Blizzard also owns King, the people who make Candy Crush and Bubble Witch and the farm Candy Crush, like the ridiculously giant mobile game developer. Okay, so there is this giant platform of a publicly traded company that is ATVI, and since it's publicly traded, investor sentiment matters a whole bunch. If investors think that Activision Blizzard as a company is doing great and they're making more money, more investors are going to want to buy that stock so that they can partake in the uptick, so that they can partake in those profits and be a part of this movement. If they foresee things are going poorly revenue-wise for Activision Blizzard, then less people will want to buy the stock, more people will sell it. That's it in a bare-bones nutshell what it is. And every single quarter you have this 30-minute investor earnings call, which is nothing more than a giant rah-rah cheerleading thing where Activision gets on the phone with their investors and they go, guys, we did so great this quarter. We made $1 bajillion, we keep making more and more dollars, and we've got this next thing coming out that's gonna make us even more money, and now we'll accept questions. Except the questions are all pre-selected and totally planned to make Activision look super duper awesome. And as expected, quarter three's earnings call, I guess if you didn't know this, Bungie is under Activision right now. Okay, Bungie's the developer, the publisher is Activision. I just wanted to frame that. And as expected, quarter three earning calls for ATVI was awesome. Okay, they're like, oh man, we sold so darn much. And they always talk about each individual game in their franchise. Here's what I want to say about Destiny 2. I pulled out all the quotes from Destiny 2, so stick with me here. It is important. This may make you gag a little bit if you're one of those players who are frustrated with where Destiny 2 is at, because as far as Activision is concerned, Destiny 2 could not be in a better place. Activision Blizzard. So I'm going to quote from the investor earnings call. This is what I think this is one of the CEOs. I actually didn't pull up his specific name here. Was mentioning at the very beginning in the intro of the call when they got to the Destiny portion, and I quote, Destiny 2 is off to a strong start, and after the PC launch is now ahead of Destiny 1 on total consumer spend, on time spent per player, attach rate to the expansion packs, and average revenue per user. Destiny 2 has also achieved a new high watermark in digital full game downloads at over 50% of console sell-through. And last week, we introduced Destiny 2 to PC gamers for the first time, opening up the franchise to a new global audience and future growth opportunities. Thanks, and appreciate the clarity on the Destiny digital data. Oh, wait, that's the question on the next one. Okay, right there. That's what I want to highlight there, okay? So as far as ATVI is concerned, Destiny 2 is a massive success because It has more total consumer spend, more money was raised on it, more time spent per player, and this is the one that makes my skin sort of crawl, attach rate to the expansion packs and average revenue per user. Okay, that means they made more money off of each individual player through microtransactions and the sale of the expansion pass than they did in Destiny 1. That to them is what makes Destiny 2 a bigger success. Now I'm going to transition into the Q&A portion of the conversation where Eric Hirschberg is going to answer one of the questions. The questions are always pre-selected, by the way. This is nothing more than just... It is such a show. It is a theatrical production to make it all look hunky-dory, and I'll dive into that in a minute. So here we go. Thanks, and appreciate the clarity on the Destiny 2 digital data. Just wondering, how has the total engagement trended for Destiny 2 to date? Maybe compared to Destiny 1 over that same time frame on a like-for-like basis? And here's Eric Hirschberg over at Activision Blizzard saying, "Hey, thanks, Evan. It's Eric. We're very happy with the performance of Destiny 2 thus far. With just a month of sales, it's already, as Cody mentioned, the best-selling console game of the year to date in the United States. But beyond that, we've also improved on pretty much all other important metrics that we look at. We're now ahead of Destiny 1 in total consumer spend. Hours per player reached a new franchise record, and average revenue per user was up as well. We also have a very strong attach rate to the expansion pass, which we think is a great indication of our fans' ongoing commitment to engagement with the franchise. So we know our fans wanted a game with a great engaging story, with great characters, and a more accessible experience overall. And we think we lived up to their high expectations on those measures. And we also know that our fans are already hungry for more. And as I've said on past calls, we now have not just Bungie, but multiple AAA teams developing content for Destiny, and we're planning on having more content than ever before to support Destiny 2, starting with the first expansion that comes on December 5th. Ugh. Oh man, I just hate it's I understand the reality of this, and okay, the games are about generating revenue at this level. But really what it comes down to is the stock share. How pleased are your investors? And if you're making more money, your investors are more pleased. It is as simple as that. And it's just, it feels so gross to me when they say that we have exceeded our players' expectations, and we can tell because of how many people bought the expansion pass. I want to flip the desk when I hear that, because people buy the expansion pass because of how lacking the original game is in terms of the end game experience. We're buying that expansion pass so we don't get left behind. We're buying that expansion pass in hopes that it'll get better, dude. And then the other thing too is they measure it by how much money you have spent. By how much money that you have spent. The other thing here that's really pretty much hits the nail on the head with what Diddy and I have been talking about on the podcast for the last few months. If you want to know why Destiny 2's first 20 hours, the story and that initial gearing experience is so much better than Destiny 1, and why that's really where they put the majority of their focus and production effort as a company, you can see this right here, and I quote, "We also know, here, our fans wanted a game with a great engaging story, with great characters, and a more accessible experience overall." Boom. Right there. Totally confirms it. The reason Destiny 2 is a more casual game is because from an executive level, there was pressure on Bungie to ensure that the game was more welcoming, more casual, more accessible. Why? Because more players playing your game is more opportunities to sell microtransactions and expansion passes. It is as simple as that to them at a high level. And fine, they're probably right. They're obviously making more money. Okay? And Destiny 1, what was the main thing the press didn't like? The story. And they didn't think it was a very accessible game. They didn't think it did a good job communicating to players why they should stick around, what the game was about, and what they should do. Well, what does Destiny 2 nail? Okay, it doesn't nail, but it does a heck of a lot better than Destiny 1. The story, you can tell where all the budget and the time and the effort went. It was in that story in the initial getting up to 260, 270 light. And then after that, it's like there's no game anymore, okay? Other than the Leviathan raid, which I thought was a pretty darn good raid, pretty fun, that kind of a thing. So, all right, let's move into how we can improve the game then, if it's all about revenue and money. I want you guys to understand that in these investor earnings calls, all of the metrics that they give, when they say our monthly active users are higher than they've ever been, when they say our engagement rates are higher than they've ever been, they are all statistics that are made up and manipulated by these companies to look flattering for them. And this just isn't an Activision Blizzard thing. This is all publicly traded companies pretty much right now in their investor earnings calls. they give out what are called non-GAAP numbers when it comes to how well the revenue did and how well, their shares did and all this stuff. It's all non-GAAP. GAAP stands for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. What that means is GAAP numbers, generally accepted accounting principles, are numbers that are real. Those are the community of accountants and business people accept this as, those are real numbers. That is the rules. They follow the rules. Non-GAAP numbers, which is what every one of these big companies reports in these earning calls, are fudged. They build the statistics to make it look like they've exceeded all of their goals. They set the bars lower than what it would normally be. They do all sorts of wonky math. And I'm sure any of my viewers who are like econ business or accounting majors know all about this. Great example. Amazon in Q3 lost like $820 million in their retail sector. Yet, their earnings call said they exceeded all expectations, and their stock price went up after the call. That's how non-GAAP numbers work. And so when I see arguments from Destiny players saying, look, when the executives see how much the population for Destiny 2 has fallen off, they're totally going to recognize the problem. No, they're not. Because the way Bungie and Activision Blizzard look at user base is through MAU, monthly active users, which is where they take 3 months, they take all the players over that 3 months and they average them, okay? And so launch month is going to be insanely high numbers, which is going to offset the low population numbers to the lower population numbers of November. And I do just want to say, by the way, the population of Destiny 2 is still outrageously good. I think there was almost like 2 million people yesterday who did a PvE activity, so that's ridiculously good. It's fantastic. How can we, as players, help the game try and improve? Okay, what can we do? This conversation is not to tell you that all of Bungie is evil. No, it's not. There are a ton of developers there who care deeply about this game and want to make the best product that they can for the gamer, but they have to straddle that line of making Activision, the publisher, happy. Okay, some developers do it better than others. The best way that you can communicate if you're not happy where the game is at is don't spend a single dime on microtransactions. Don't buy anything from Eververse. Don't do that. Do not give them money in that way because they see that as a blind checkbox of, yes, approval from the players that you're happy, that you are a positively engaged person, and that you are just really pleased with where Destiny's at. The expansion pass thing, that stinks because I can't sit here and tell you don't get the expansion pass. If you're a Destiny player and you want to continue playing the game, you have to buy it. There is no option, okay? I mean, if you really feel strongly about not wanting to support the game and where it's at, that's just something that is on you. And I feel bad here. I do overshoot this guy. I apologize, man. That was uncalled for. But I was pretty stoked. I was like, all right, nice little comeback there. But don't ever do that. I was having a bad work day that day. So anyway, don't buy Eververse engrams, period. Unless you're pleased with where the game is at. And then continue voicing yourself in a constructive way. I hope this video is not something that comes across ultra ranty. It's not my goal. I want to see this game improve. I want us to, as a community, move forward in a positive way. There really is no easy answer to any of this. We're moving into a new era of game development where these behemoths, the giant AAAs, when they're publicly traded, it changes the entire thing. And that's sometimes why it's unfair to compare smaller studios. I've been playing a lot of Warframe lately. I think Warframe does an awesome job. I think Digital Extremes does a super good job with their community. But they also don't have some of the immense pressures that Bungie and Activision and Blizzard do when it comes to how they're viewed at a investor level. Just to close out how big these dudes are, they're on financial media all the time. I work in marketing for a wealth advisory firm, and so I pay attention to financial press pretty much day in, day out, and you'd be amazed at just how often you see Activision Blizzard touted as the poster child of video game stock shares. It really is the only one that gets the main attention right now. So, man, okay, if that was a super boring conversation, I apologize. I just wanted to add some perspective into this sphere. This is something I care deeply about. I really like getting to read these investor earnings calls because there is some insight into this. And clearly, you can see accessibility was a big focus from the executive level down. And that may explain why Destiny 2 vanilla experience, I think, does a great job with the initial 20 hours, and then it falls off pretty steeply. I have a lot of faith in people like Christopher Barrett and the live team, and what's important now is communicating in a constructive way. I know some of you are super frustrated with where D2 is at. Some of you are loving it, and that is awesome. Don't turn to insults, vitriol, anger, that kind of a thing. The developers are also in a tight spot too, where it's a balance of how much do they push back against some of these executive level initiatives of what their revenue goals should be for microtransaction spends and expansion pass spends. So just try and be patient, kind with the developers and the way that you voice your feedback. That's how we can hopefully see Destiny 2 improve or virtually any, large-scale game right now. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by thumbsing it up. Drop a comment down below with your thoughts on this whole matter. If you made it through the entire video, seriously, hats off to you. I apologize for this being super rambly, but like I said, important to me and maybe important to you. So thanks, have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk with you next time.